What is going on? Welcome to episode number 3. If you haven't seen the first 2 parts, then just go and watch them. If you have, then you're going to have your pre-call process that has been dialed in, and you're going to have the ultimate frame set up to start your sales conversation. So you're going to come across as an authority, an expert, a professional who is also grounded, respectful, the mentor kind of vibes, okay? So go through those if you haven't already. For everyone that has, I appreciate the love and support so far. This is only the beginning. In terms of today's episode, we will be diving into the discovery process. As I hope most of you know, this is where the sale is really made, okay? Everything is important, but the sale is basically the date. You're taking them on the date. They're going to decide whether they like you or not in that moment, okay? So this will be numerous parts. On today's one, I will be taking you through a training, but then I've also done a very long meeting with Cole, who is an extremely good friend of mine. I used to work with him at Educate. He also coaches alongside me in sales.io, and then he is currently selling on a dating offer where last month he made around 30K in commissions. So he's an absolute beast. We have very different approaches towards sales. He's very analytical and it's very interesting how his brain works. So the combination of both of us together is going to create some serious sauce, again, all for free. We're going to be diving deep into the discovery process now. Just like my actual sales calls are scriptless, this video is also going to be very scriptless, off the fly. I'm just going to talk you through with the iPad, of course, on how I am structuring my discoveries, how we can have a real, authentic conversation. And it's not going to be the same regurgitated shit that you hear from every other sales course. What you'll find is, like, the deeper you get into the sales space, it's just the same things repackaged over and over and over and over and over and over again. And what's funny is that, like, I was taking sales calls and I would try some of these things. For example, the typical opportunity cost question of, like, well, what happens if nothing changes in 6 months? Okay, this is fucking lame. Okay, and if there's anyone that you follow that is spouting those words on one of those lame little Instagram reels where they're objection handling with like a deep voice of a prospect that's probably fake, you should probably just unfollow them, because honestly, like, they're kind of clueless. Like, this can sometimes land, right? If you're in B2C specifically, maybe every now and then it will land, especially if you are maybe on an offer where they've never ever been on a sales call before. Any other exception to that rule, you're fucked. You ask that question, you just look like a moron. You're in a B2B settings. Well, what happens if nothing changes in 6 months? They're going to be like, oh my God, not this loser little sales guy with no experience asking me bullshit questions, okay? So obviously you've got your current state, you have your future state. We have all these other parts, right? These theoretical parts where I'm not very analytical, where I'm like, okay, this is the structure. Like, I think it's all bullshit, right? So you've got, your opportunity cost and cost of inaction and blah, 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 and all of this stuff. But, like, let's just focus on these. This is where most people spend their time. Like, whenever I'm reviewing a sales call, like, people love to be in this state. Oh, what's your goal? How much money do you want to make? Oh, 10K? Is that just stage 1, or what's the real goal here? Look, okay, it's good to have these points as leverage sometimes, and I will ask a few questions around the future state and the goals and what they actually want to achieve, but it's not going to create the sale. 1000% it will not create the sale, okay? So the reason this is so commonly focused on is because it is comfortable. Okay? It's easy for you to talk about. It's easy for them to talk about. There's no friction. There's no intensity. It doesn't create the sale, but it feels good to talk about. Like, oh, what's your goals, man? Oh, that's awesome. What's driving that? What do you want to do? Oh, yeah, I'd love to retire my parents. Oh, that's so good, man. Amazing. Like, this person's never, like, they're just using retire my parents as a buzzword. They've never even actually tangibly thought, like, what would it look like to retire my parents? How much money would I specifically need to make? What does retiring my parents even mean? Oh, I need to buy a house. Okay, how much is the down payment? Like, it's just this theorized, like, nice to say little back of a cereal box motivational quote, okay? You're not going to make a sale within this. So you should only be using it as leverage. Now, the other thing that you're doing, if you are this kind of person that's doing so much within this, is you are robbing yourself of the literal vehicle of growth that sales is so good at. I've said this before, I think I said this on one of the other videos, is like, if you actually just lock in with this, sales is the number one vehicle that you can have for a transformative growth within yourself. And I have personally gone through that. I was a very anxious, shy, awkward type of person, okay, before, like very, very much so. And we'll do like a little I don't know, fucking hero's journey, villain arc type thing before of like old photos of me and stuff maybe. But, right, this is such a strong vehicle of growth, but not if you're just doing this type of shit. You're just reading a bit of like some loser little script questions. You're focusing loads in the future state. You have a nice little conversation. Then you pitch them. Some of them buy, but they would have bought even if you were a literal jar of snot. So it's like you're robbing yourself of the vehicle of growth. You're also robbing the prospect who does need a little bit more of a raw, authentic conversation to push them out of the cycle that they've been trapped within, okay? What we have to realize is that you need to step up, because there are so many people in this world, and I witness it more and more and more as time goes on, that they don't have anyone around them that is telling them how it really is. Even ones who are like married, like their own wife, their own family, all of this shit, their own friends, they're not saying, hey, you're actually destined for more, and you're just fucking yourself over because you're lazy and you're so risk averse that you are literally settling for a life of mediocrity. People aren't willing to say that. It's much more easy to say like, oh, it's okay. Like, yeah, you should rest. You should rest all week because you've had a hard life and they're just working like a 9 to 5. You're destining the person that you love for a life of mediocrity, okay? So look at that and have that in the forefront of your mind, the importance of how you need to step up because they might not have anyone else who is willing to do that, okay? So we're going to focus a lot more on this. Why? Because what we can figure out here is their current reality, and if they continue this same cycle of behaviors, of actions, of routines, what their new reality would look like if they continued doing that. Okay, so we want to get crystal clear on what their current reality looks like. And we want to identify what are the actions, the behaviors, the things that they're telling themselves and doing that have got them in that exact position. Okay, so the type of people who are just going to say, oh, you know, it's just how my brain works. I have to see everything. I have to like analyze everything and then I'll make a decision. And like she'd been sleeping or making an actual decision for like a year and a half, 2 years. People will tell themselves a certain narrative of who they are, and that's the literal exact thing that is holding them within that place, okay? So the key here, this is how we're going to make the sale, is to get so clear on exactly what's going on in their life, what has got them within that position, and then the future state is more around the risk of what this new reality will look like, as in what the future will look like, if they continue this current cycle. That is where we're going to actually make a fucking strong sale. Because we can say to them, okay, so currently you're doing all these things, you're doing this, you've been researching for 6 months, blah, 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 okay, right? And then we can tailor it towards this. So it's like, do you have concerns that if you continue to operate in this way, you're not going to be able to have these goals that you mentioned earlier? And as a result, you're settling. That is the opportunity cost. And we'll give like more tangible examples of how we can really ask that as a powerful question that's very contextual. But you see how that is true opportunity cost. That is literally like, okay, I've got a clear understanding, a clear diagnosis. Like I am basically stepping up as the doctor. Like, okay, I have absolute clarity on who this person is, what's been going on in their life, the type of struggles that they have, the type of behaviors that they have, the amount of times that they've talked themselves out of committing to something, etc., etc. I have absolute clarity on that. And then the opportunity cost is like, hey man, if you keep doing this thing, you're never going to be able to get the goals that you want within your life, right? And just saying that to them, right? Literally, like, do you feel like if you continue doing the things that you've been doing here, and we would mention them out, do you feel like you'll actually reach these goals that you mentioned to me earlier? It's about holding the mirror up, okay? Because people aren't willing to do it. People will tell you all the time, yeah, you know, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been doing this, like, you know, because it feels good for them to say and rationalize. Your number one goal is to literally take the rationalization and break it, right? So the exact mentality that I come into the sales call with, that you should as well, is why are they not already in this place? As in, like, whatever you're selling, better lead generation, starting an e-commerce store, selling a dating offer, why are they not already getting the desired results? That is the number one mentality that I come into the sales call with. It's like, okay, my ultimate goal here is just to figure out, why don't they already have this? Like, I'm curious towards it. So I'm just coming in with curiosity. I'm like, I wonder why they don't already have this. So I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions around what's currently going on. And within that, you're going to slowly but surely identify, okay, this is a warped way of looking at it, or like they're doing this, like that's not going to bring them close to where they want to be, or like they're justifying this thing, like, oh, I'm working too much. And it's like, okay, is this actually something important to you? Okay, so we're coming in with curiosity. Like, this is the number one way that I come into a sales call. Like, why do they not already have it? Because if they had the capacity to make this happen already, they would have made it happen already. So that is why it is our duty to step up, identify why don't they already have this thing, because that is the exact thing that is stopping them. And that's the thing that we need to focus on, okay? Let's make this very like this, okay? And here's a stick man, because why not? So with that being said, the first area for us to focus on when we come into a sales call is the problem. Okay? Now, I want to clear something up here. We have problem and pain. Most people, they kind of lump them in together. They just think it's like a different word for the same thing. What you'll find is, I look at the pain as a byproduct of the problem. Now, what you'll realize, the problem is always them. Okay? It's that they either have done nothing. Oh my God. I can't use my pen right now. It's either that they've done nothing. It's either that they are rationalizing. It's that, like, they have been researching, like all of this stuff. Like, the problem is that they haven't resolved it, which is only them, right? It's about accountability and ownership. So our goal is to identify, like, how are they showing up that is stopping them from resolving the problem? But it's always them. So to some degree, we need to identify what is the behavior, what is the cycle, what is the thing that they're doing that is stopping them, or at least slowing them down from actually doing this. Now, the pain is the byproduct. The pain is like the situation that they're in, the things that they're not able to have, the things that are, not good within their life. But the problem is the behaviors, the things that they haven't managed to solve yet, and them. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense, because there's a little bit of a clear distinction. And then our goal, we have the opening question, all right? We want to have a conversation which is actually focused towards a problem, because we are here as a consultant. We should be there to resolve a problem. We are not there to just have a nice little conversation, okay? So there are numerous ways to be able to do this. It really depends on what you're selling, but you can have the biggest challenge, which is obviously a kind of a popular one now. It's going around a lot. You got biggest challenge. You could have biggest bottleneck. So, like, what do you feel like is the biggest bottleneck in your sales process currently? Or what do you feel like is the biggest bottleneck in your lead generation right now? Or what do you feel like is the biggest challenge in your e-com business at the moment right now? Whatever, okay? So all of these different things, you want it to be focused around the pain, the problem, okay? So we have a strong opening question, because this will dictate the rest of the conversation. If you just have a little, well, tell me a little bit about you. Terrible. It's too open-ended. We let them take too much control, and you're going to get a lot of irrelevant information compared to what is the biggest bottleneck within your sales process right now. There's only really one direction that they can go, right? So we want to take this opening question and we want to make it relevant towards the thing that we're selling, and then we just ask directly around that so that we can stay on the correct tracks. And then it's up to us, if we feel the necessity to go elsewhere in their life or in general, we can come off of those tracks, but it's controlled by us, okay? So the whole section here is actually getting tangible, clear-cut, conversational direction towards what is the problem that's going on right now. Now, what you might find is that there's layers towards it, right? Because they might say, yeah, the biggest challenge I'm having with my leads right now is there's just not enough of them. What is your lead generation source to begin with? And then we obviously want to figure out, like, how many, okay? Then we want to understand things like, fluctuations. Has that recently dropped? Like what has shifted recently for you to now want to look into lead generation external sources, like a third party to generate them? Or maybe they've already looked into them. So it's like, cool, is this the first thing that you've looked into? No, yes. Yes, it is the first thing. Cool. What shifted recently for you to now feel like you need a third party to help you with your lead generation? But what you'll then find is like, where does the problem become? Them. How long has this been an issue for? 3 months. In the last 3 months, what have you done to try and increase your lead flow? It's no longer a problem around lead generation. It's a problem around the timeline that they have not been increasing or doing the necessary steps to get the lead flow where it needs to be. So then it is them, and we shift the responsibility and the problem to them. Okay, interesting. In the last 3 months, what have you specifically looked for in order to increase the lead flow? Haven't really been trying anything. Like I've just been, hoping that it would get better, but now I realize that it won't. Understood. Right? It's like all of a sudden it's them that is the problem. Okay. So then you could say, well, I'm curious, why did you wait 3 months before saying, okay, it's not getting any better? Was there any reason that you weren't trying to be proactive 3 months ago? What has shifted recently for you to now feel like, okay, it's not going to get better. I do need to get some external source. Are we the first people that you've looked into on this, right? How much runway do you have of the current lead flow results before you would actually be in a position where things are not looking too great for you, right? And we're going to hold them accountable, okay? That is the goal here. We want to be able to hold them accountable, okay? So this is a little bit of a rant. We might do a little bit more training in there. I'm going to throw training that I had with Cole, and then we're just going to layer and layer. What I also want to do is be able to show you all specifically how I do a lot of these things in call reviews as well, okay? So that will be one of the focuses. What I'm thinking with that, to be honest, because I feel like there's a lot of logistics and complexities and confusion towards posting a call review just publicly on YouTube. So what I'm thinking with that is I have tons of call reviews that I've done, and I'm probably going to make a little bit of like exclusive call review, like you can get access to one, okay? So I'll put that in the description. I'll find some way to be able to provide you a private call review. Just check in the description. It will be clear cut in there, okay? All right. I am here joined by Mr. Cole Verbeek. We are going to take you through a groundbreaking, earth-shattering, fucking systematic approach that Cole does when it comes to sales calls. He is a beast. I've already given a little bit of an introduction, but now I'm here with the man himself. So if you want to give maybe a little bit of context as to maybe how we know each other, how we're working together right now, and maybe the current offer that you're on and how that's going before we dive into the training.
So I work on a top dating offer in the space, selling products that are between 5K all the way up to 20K. And this is my exact system that I use in that discovery. Last month, I just did 30K, and I met Scott essentially being a setter at Eman Gadji's team, where I would actually, send out all these messages every day and stuff, and then eventually became this closer on this offer. But as I've been forming and guiding all of this, and I'm almost at 1 million now in sales, over 800,000 closed on this specific offer. So this is the actual top framework that I've used to achieve those 30K months and break historical records that have never been achieved on that offer. And it's a different approach to it. I don't use gap selling. I don't use kind of these different ways. There's elements of all these different frameworks that are a part of it, but it gets to the heart of what truly changes the prospect, which is around their identity. It's around their beliefs that we have. And we're going to go through the meta kind of analysis of all these different things and the mechanisms that cause that. We're going to give you a high level of those phases that you need to go through so you can just have effortless closes as you go through this. And then different beliefs that kind of incorporate different hypnotic patterns, different ways of framing things and stuff that the prospect must have so that they can have that end goal that they want and actually make that change so you can close the deal and have that consistency and know what's actually causing you to close these deals and not close these deals.
We have different styles to how we close, but what we've realized is that we're very aligned in kind of how we get to that place. We do it from a different angle, but ultimately the end goal is the same. So I think there's going to be a good synergy that we can figure out together here.
100%. So the 3 phases that I'm thinking about with discovery, and Scott, just in this whole masterclass series, we've gone through frame, we've gone through these different elements. This is specifically just talking about discovery. I think people overcomplicate it. And when I was creating this framework, I wanted to get to the essence of it. And there's certain words of it that may sound similar to things that you've seen, but the way that we think about these three levels, the way I think about them, is completely different from what I formed and discovered of what actually truly matters in these situations. So it's broken into three phases of discovery. The first is pain. And the core belief you need to have with this is people aren't buying because of future state. They're not buying because of, some goal and stuff you have. Any belief that you give them of like, oh, maybe I could, have this dream car, maybe this dream lifestyle where I do have this agency or I do have, the dating life that I want. All of those things are only alleviations of their current pain that they're experiencing, right? The fundamental nature of humans is like this discontent, this burden that they carry, this underlying anxiety that they want to get away from. So the only time that you're really actually going to, if you're doing goal state, it's to alleviate that existing pain. And a lot of what we're doing when they actually buy is for them to get a dopamine hit of alleviating their pain and feeling like they can actually escape it so that they can go to the next version of themselves. So we're getting the heart of what drives a person. And a great metaphor that we have in sales.io from Jeff, one of the people that we work with that's a top closer at Gym Launch, he uses that analogy of who's going to run faster, a person running out of a burning building or a person running towards their dream house. It always comes down to actually running out of that burning building. It's more urgent. It's more of this genuine desire for them. So remember that people buy because of pain and urgency. And we go through a whole sequence in discovery of unfolding these questions so that they deeply feel the urgency of their problem, because there is so much urgency and people will use these delusion mechanisms to essentially be like, my reality is okay, or I can just get by another day and stuff. We need to hold up that mirror and show them all the opportunity costs, all the things that are piling up, all of the mistakes that they've made so that they can realize the gravity of the situation. And then our value of this starts building up. The second phase of all of this is very unique to me. This is probably the most unique element of it. And really what drives it, if you're getting to the high levels of this, is responsibility. And responsibility is a very unique word of this, is that once we get to the bottom of it, when we show them the mirror, we show them how shitty their life is, how everything is falling apart and burning, I want to then say, hey, are you going to take responsibility to actually change this? So this section of it is around accountability. It's around them, being like, hey, I need to change, and admitting that and explaining why. And also it kind of transitions from pain. The transition question from pain to responsibility would be that cost of inaction. That, hey, if this burning building keeps forming and keeps getting worse and worse, is that a reality that you're willing to settle for? And having them admit that I don't want to settle for that and taking responsibility. One thing, and I said it earlier, that people buy because of pain and urgency, this is also what's going to handle your time objections, is that people, if they have full responsibility, full ownership of the problem, if they say, hey, I know that this is burning down the building, I know if I keep doing this, it's going to be bad, and they admit to change, and they do all of these things, if they have that 10 out of 10 responsibility, ownership, and commitment, it's so hard for them to say, yes, I want to do this, but I'm going to do this 3 months later. That once you hit a certain pinnacle of responsibility and ownership that you've created in that person, then they'll automatically just have the time for it. They'll create the time for it. Time excuses will start to go down because they feel like they have to be a greater role model, to have a greater impact in the world. They'll feel that they just need to do it and that it's their only decision that they really have. So that is the core essence of responsibility. And then once they realize that, they've taken that ownership, we then go into the third phase of this system, which is goal state. And it's not classic goal state. I'm not talking about, hey, how much do you want to make per month? And then they say 10K and I say, hey, that's cool. And then that's it. Are you, looking for time freedom or location freedom? I don't do any of that. It's goal state with identity kind of put into it, and then goal expansion as they go through it. So this is, you want to really think of it as I'm casting identity in this thing. So I'm like, hey, have you always been this type of person that's improving yourself? Have you always been XYZ way? It's a way where I'm going to cast identity and then be like, hey, if your future state is going this way, like if you are, if you find yourself more confident and this thing actually truly works for you, how do you see this not only impacting, your dating life, your relationship life? How do you feel this will impact other areas of your life beyond the service itself? So this is where you're getting to the essence of who they are everywhere. It's that this is a transformation that's not only going to benefit their specific solution that they were looking for, but it's going to benefit all areas of their life. I'm also going to ask them a lot of role model questions that, hey, if you have that identity of that new person that's more confident, more social, how's that going to impact how your kids look at you? How's that going to impact how that future person you're going to meet is going to look at you? And it's this more expansive version of goals that actually allows them to realize, like, hey, like, I want to get to that level. And it's this higher purpose that they want to follow.
So, of these three phases, before we go into the 10 beliefs, on your offer right now, and I understand that, like, because we do it scriptless, it's circumstantial, dependent on the conversation.
Yeah.
But what would be like, I guess, a typical way that you're coming in to the conversation in order to establish that pain and then deepen it? Like, what kind of questions are we typically angling or looking towards?
Yeah, so the typical questions that I open up with always open up the discovery with what's your biggest challenge or what's your frustration point? Like, what's the thing that's causing issues for you right now? That's always what we opened up discovery with. And then that allows the rest of the discovery to be easier. And it's great to do data collection. It's great to like have, rough information that you collect so you can have kind of a wider field at which you're hitting. But we have that fundamental thing start with challenge, and then the next thing you want to think about as we go deeper into pain is what specifically, right? And this kind of connects with data collection essentially. But like, okay, you said you're not going on any dates. You said you're not getting any, agency clients. Like specifically how much or specifically where is that showing up for you? Or is it showing up here? Or what do you think actually caused that? We start to go down into the specifics of getting clarity of how much pain they're actually going through and then what the actual cost of that is. Once we have kind of clarity of what caused that, what are the specifics of it, I'm then going to probably go into more impact where it's going to be like, okay, so you're noticing that it's actually, XYZ that's doing this. How has that been, impacts everyone differently that we work with? How is that specifically impacting you carrying that burden like week by week, having to go through those different things that you have to go through? How is that weight? How are you dealing with that? Right. And I'm going to start using language that's a little bit heavier too. How's that emotionally fatiguing you? Okay. So it's affecting not only your confidence, but it's also affecting this other area. So I'll start to like expand the pain through the subtle language patterns that I'm using in the pre-framing. But it's this thing of a little bit heavier language that I'm using and subtle things. I'll add the disclaimers too, because I'm not just going to be like, hey, how does that make you feel? Right. That's too direct. I'm like, hey, a lot of people don't realize, or hey, I know it may sound like a simple question and stuff, but like, how has that really been impacting you for the last year? Like having to put up with that insecurity of just not being able to approach people that you want to approach. When I add those disclaimers, they're able to actually just open up and really connect with that feeling question. Once we start getting so down to like, what's caused this? How is this impacting them? We're starting to get deeper and deeper. The burning of the building is starting to expand more and more. We then get to the bottom of it, which will be cost of inaction. And that's is what's going to bridge us over to that responsibility portion where it's like, hey, so we've identified that XYZ has been going on. This is happening, this is falling apart, everything like that. Just as an exercise, to hold you accountable, because part of what we do here is coach you and make sure they can be held accountable. If this doesn't change and things stay the same like they have been for the last 6 months, and that goes over to 6 months from now, a year from now, and things stay the same or potentially get worse, is that a real possibility if you don't change things? Sure, you'll get lucky and stuff, but like, is it a real possibility? Yeah, okay. And then if that happens, are you willing to settle for that reality of this staying the same or potentially getting worse? So we get them to agree with that cost of inaction question, but then we get them to go into essentially that responsibility phase. We're like, hey, is that a reality that you want to settle for? And then now we're starting to go into that phase two of everything.
Nice. Okay, amazing. Because the way that I look at these things is like I come at it from a different place, but it hits on a lot of the same points. So like my number one thing that is going through my brain when I'm jumping on a sales call is like, why does this person not already have the thing they're looking for? Like at the end of the day, if they had the mental bandwidth, the knowledge, the capabilities, the skill sets, whatever it might be to achieve this, they already would have achieved this. So there's ultimately something that has been holding them back. And that is why, like we said, it's much better to go so deep on their current situation, the reality of it, make it visceral, talk about where it's showing up. If we're talking about dates, we're like pulling how many dates he went on specifically, what the quality of those dates has looked like if he has gone on any of them, why he's been willing to go on dates with people that he doesn't enjoy the company of, right? Why have you been willing to settle for subpar dates? Do you feel like you deserve better than that? What's stopping you from actually getting that thing that you know you deserve in the first place? And we just spend so much time creating this current existence of what they are and who they are, and we can bridge that into, like we were saying, the goals and the responsibilities and everything like that, where it's like, hey, like you could be living this future reality, but continuing the exact cycle that you're doing right now will not allow that future to ever happen or to ever be better or to change. And this is why there's so many examples of like this whole future state, and we're asking all these things. It's like, oh, how much money do you want to make? And it's like 10K. And it's like, oh, is that just stage one? And it's like, oh no, I guess I could make 20K. And it's like, this isn't creating anything within the sale. All this is doing is having a really nice to have conversation. And whenever both of us review sales reps conversations, most of the time, a lot of it is spent within the future state. And the reason for it is because it's so easy to talk about. It's not intense. They're happy talking about it. You're happy talking about it. There's no level of like pressure underneath it. But obviously pressure makes diamonds. And you should be looking at every single prospect as someone that on the other side of them, and this is why we talk about identity, of them owning a new identity of themselves, they can become a diamond. And you have to apply that pressure, because unfortunately we live in a world where most people, including their own family, their own friends, potentially, obviously maybe not on a dating offer, but like on another offer, like their wife or whoever it might be, they're not having the real, raw, authentic, tough conversations with them. And as a result, they're robbing them of the higher version of themselves that they could actually tap into. So when you start to look at the discovery as like, I'm going to challenge, if needed, the current version of this human being, because I know that they're capable of so much more. And why have they been willing to settle for this reality up until this point? What do you feel like has actually stopped you from going out and creating this new reality? And just diving deep into that. That's the number one thing that I look at, is like, what has ultimately stopped this person before? And then I'm just looking for the objections, which we'll do in a separate like training or whatever, but like the prevention of objections, because they've got specific mind viruses and beliefs and just things that have held them back. These little, I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable of this, or I don't want to invest in order to get there, or whatever it might be. And ultimately, without challenging and reframing that, they will remain in that exact place. So it's beautiful. Anything else that you wanted to add into those three phases that you feel like is important to go over before we kind of dive into the 10 beliefs?
Yeah, so, and Scott said it perfectly, is that this isn't, just a nice to have conversation. A lot of it is accountability. Even in that goal spot of it, I'm always like, hey, like, have you always been like this? Have you always been a person that's into self-development? It's a lot of casting things, but it's a lot of like, you have to take ownership of the thing you're going through. So pain is very intense. The responsibility part of like, hey, are you actually going to take ownership of this stuff? And then the goal stuff is not even about them and making 10K months. It's about how their actions affect other people and affect other areas of their life. So it's expansive. So in its own way, it's also a cost as well. So all three of these, it's a completely different way of looking at it, but it's giving them that massive responsibility. And what I'm doing is I'm assuming that they have more potential. I'm assuming that they can be at a higher level. And since I have that assumption through my questions and through the way that I'm asking them, I'm creating that identity and I'm creating this environment where they can actually finally step into that person that they need to become, to let go of all this stuff and then actually have a chance of changing themselves and, getting the course and going through that process of changing even more. But as closers, we're the catalyst for that. We can be that person that actually helps them make a great decision to actually start changing their reality.
100%. Catalyst is a beautiful word. I always say as well, like, we are literally providing a transformative experience for someone. And if you sell with that level of intention and ethical nature, every now and then you'll get someone that's not willing to take ownership and responsibility to that. And you're trying to meet them in the middle and they're not willing to step into that. And that person is just someone that isn't aligned, and you're not even going to extend an offer to them. So then all of the people who are willing to step into that, you can sell it with such a higher level of conviction because you genuinely know that it's going to work for them and they have shown a level of commitment that other people weren't willing to do. So that was the first of a few parts in regards to the discovery. As we go deeper into this, I want to show you very tangibly how we're going to be able to make this happen. This first episode was more around some of the psychology behind it, changing your perspectives towards it a little bit, weighing on the importance of it, but still showcasing, some tangible things as to how we make this happen. As we go deeper, I've done some very in-depth coaching calls in the past around identifying people's behaviors and how to break those behaviors and things. So we'll go very deep on some of those areas. In regards to this video right here though, hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, all of that stuff. Everyone that has supported me, I love you all. In the description, you have a link to sales.io, which is a free sales community, which I do some coaching within and everything there. If you want to stay in contact with me, you got my Instagram, especially if you're a business owner and you want me to violently scale your high ticket offer and bring on a better sales team, improve your current sales team, and just demolish the amount of revenue that you're making per month. Apart from that, I don't know what this is. This is some kind of like Star Trek sign. Anyway, peace and love. I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.